History laid the foundation
that informs our conversation. Welcome to the classroom.
From the church to the streets, and even in the suites, and all around the world. I'm gonna keep it real in the classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to another amazing episode of Fannie Lou's Classroom. I know I say it every week that this is an amazing podcast. It's an amazing episode with wonderful guests, but that's because they're always wonderful. And today is going to be no exception. I'm super excited about our conversation on today as we discuss art as a form of protest. So art does more than just inspire. Art has instigated, undergirded revolutions, giving voice to those who have been silenced. It's also about amplifying our collective work and pulling us and calling us into something much bigger than ourselves. So I'm super excited on today, but as I always do, I have to shout out the entire Fannie Lou classroom. I'm saying whole team, but it's only 4 of us, but we make it work from week to week. Cheryl is out on vacation. Ashley is out on today, so it's me and Brooke holding it down. So let's give it up for our whole classroom team. So me and Brooke doing what she does, and I'm serving all other roles. So I'm multitasking today, but that's what we do. Especially Black women, we make that thing work.
Amen.
We just jump in and make it happen. So today, I'm so excited about this conversation. Have beautiful people up in here today, beautiful souls in here. It's already warm in here just for them being with me. And so I'm going to just introduce, and then I'll do all of my other conversation after that. But let me go ahead and get our official introductions out of the way. Nobody's a stranger up in here, but we want to make sure we give due to the amazing gifts that they got. We have Reverend Damien Durr with us on this afternoon, who is a native of Cleveland, Ohio. He attended American Baptist College and Vanderbilt University, where he received his M.DIV as a presidential scholar at ABC and a Kelly Miller Smith Fellow at Vanderbilt. He helped facilitate various initiatives, discussions, and community engagement activities involving childhood education, the juvenile justice system, the prison industrial complex, the cradle to prison pipeline, and the role of the Black church in hip hop culture. He served in the Metro Nashville public school system as a social and emotional specialist and mentor to multiple African American boys. His undergraduate and graduate work has been incorporated through programs and published works via the Haynes Middle School Mentoring Program, the Bishop Michael Lee Graves Leadership Academy, Abington Press. He has also co-produced numerous documentaries addressing the role of the church and the intellectualism in the Black community. He served as the former community engagement facilitator for the Children's Defense Fund, the Nashville team, and served as the former executive director of Faith Forming Human Services and executive pastor of community development at Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. We still miss him. He is currently the president of Gus Newport Project and chief operations officer of the Samuel Witt Proctor Conference in Chicago, Illinois, and founder of DCD Empowerment LLC. Let's welcome back to the classroom the Reverend Damien Durr, my friend and my brother.
So glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you so much.
And then we have the minister, Saul Gates, who is a seasoned music educator, director, and cultural creator with over 2 decades of experience at the intersection of music, education, and community service. As a minister of music at Friendship West Baptist Church, he leads innovative music programming that blends sacred tradition and social consciousness. A graduate of Texas College with a focus in vocal performance, Saul has directed school and collegiate choirs, developed music curricula, and cultivated platforms for youth expression through the arts. His work amplifies the role of music as a tool for protest, healing, and transformation, making him a timely voice in conversations on art as activism. Let's welcome Minister Saul Gates to the classroom.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and a part of this conversation with you all.
And let me add this caveat, that tune, our tune that you hear, is that the right word for a tune or our
Jingle,
intro?
yeah,
Our little
intro.
intro jingle, that is the brilliance of Minister Saul Gates who put that together for us. And we've been running strong with that intro for the past 6 seasons.
Yeah, right.
And so people still like it to make you sway a little bit while it's helping us remember who Fannie Lou was. So thank you, Minister Gates, for that. And then we have my sister, the Dr. Michelle McGee Norfleet, Paisley's mother.
Yes.
Dr. Michelle McGee Norfleet is a creative force who moves at the intersection of art, justice, and faith. She's the founder of Nylon, is that right? Nylon Empowerment Solutions, and served as Director of Worship and Creative Arts at Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. With a background that spans the classroom, the stage, and the sanctuary, Michelle has spent decades using music, culture, storytelling as tools for transformation. She's the author of In Due Season, Reaping the Harvest of Purpose, Time, Motherhood, come on. And her work centers Black women, families, and leaders who are navigating real-life pressure with purpose. Michelle is married to Dr. Marquette Norfleet, and is the proud mom, yes she is, of Paisley D. Norfleet and Tyreek D. Norfleet. Whether she's building curriculum, writing books, or designing worship experiences that speak to the souls of Black people, her work always points people back to their voice, their truth, and their power to disrupt what needs to be disrupting. Welcome back to the classroom, my sister, my friend, Dr. Michelle McGee Norfleet.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be amongst these people here in this room and the airways over there. We're about to have fun.
Yes, so I'm excited. So one of the things I want to just start off with, and I bear the image of one who I say is certainly one who used art as a form of protest, Billie Holiday, who died chained to a hospital bed because she refused not to sing a song rooted in truth to make this nation face the horrors of lynching. Right. And so what I want to do is maybe let's just start off. Anybody can jump in, but let's talk about the roots, right? Let's talk about how art as a form of protest, where the language we use now may not have been the language our ancestors used, but indeed their actions speak to how they were able to use what they had to resist, right? In that point, in antebellum period would be enslavement, then Jim Crow, et cetera. So let's just talk about, how you see the ways in which spiritual storytelling and survival, how our ancestors use art to get through that and to communicate with one another.
I think something that you touched on with the question was that we use what we had, and our ancestors who were enslaved, they brought songs with them that they used to help stories that guided them out of enslavement, that helped them to sustain their sense of who they were while they were enslaved. They used those oral traditions and those songs that they brought over here with them to sustain them in the mistreatment that they were receiving, but again also to provide clues as to how we can make it out of this current situation and approach freedom, that goal that we do have. And from there, it developed throughout the years. We took those same spirituals that they used in the fields while they were, trying to get away from master, to then encourage ourselves as we were in our search for a truer sense of freedom than being released from chains. We wanted to truly be seen as human beings. And so I need to be released from this intellectual slavery of sense. So we use those same hymns and songs. And I was watching a documentary the other day about mass meetings and mass sing-alongs where they would take songs like "Oh Freedom," that they were singing in the slave fields, wanting to be free from slavery. But we started singing them during the Civil Rights Movement to say that I want to be free from the entrapment of Jim Crow laws. I want to be free from the idea that I am less than or less human. And I want to be seen for who I am, a human being, somebody who's worth every bit of the air I breathe, just like you are.
Yeah.
And so we took that thing that had one meaning in one place and retrofitted it
Right.
to serve the purpose that, which we still do today.
Yes, yes.
In a sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you know that. I'm gonna jump in, Pastor Durr. Were you about to? When you said
No.
that, it just kind of thought transferability.
yeah.
Our ability to it doesn't matter the setting we're in. I just think about our creation. God breathed the breath of life, so
Yeah.
that's a divine being that breathed. God gave us life.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
gave us that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
our DNA says, you didn't give me this life.
That's right.
God gave me this life. So I'm going to use everything that he provided for me to sustain this life. Even if you kill this body.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
not
Right.
gonna kill the soul.
You're
Right.
not going to kill the soul. And
Right.
so we have been able to transfer that. Like you said, in the fields, it meant one thing.
Yeah.
In the streets, it meant, it meant the same thing. The message was the same. We
Right.
just changed the setting. And so I just think about Billie Holiday, and, particularly Strange Fruit.
Yeah.
That's the, people say that's a protest song. For me, I don't know if it was a protest song. I think it was Billie making white people sit in that club, because I think it was the only integrated club
Right.
where she started singing Strange Fruit. It was she made white people sit there. If you're going to
Right.
consume me for entertainment,
yeah.
That's right.
I'm going to make you sit
That's right.
and see basically what you're doing to
Correct,
me. What
correct.
you're
That's
doing
right.
to me. And I think, I think people weren't able to applaud. I think she would do it at the end of all her sets.
Yeah.
That would be at the end of the sets. You could not applaud because it wasn't entertainment.
It wasn't entertainment.
It wasn't entertainment. You're going to have to
life.
sit here. You can enjoy my voice. You can enjoy the beauty and the creativity. And I want you to sit and see all that we're able to do, as a people, regardless of what you put on us. But I also want you to see the horror and the terror in this black body that you consume for entertainment. You're also killing. Well, you think you're killing, but you're not necessarily. So,
Yeah, I love that, and not protest, but it was certainly I would say a song of resistance, because I'm going to resist a lie
right.
that you
Yes.
attempt to
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
This, because that's what IDB's writing did. To me, that's art too. The way in which IDB
right.
Wells wrote
Yeah.
to be able to tell. I'm gonna reclaim this story. You saying it's
Right.
because our black men raping white women? No, it's because you jealous of our economic advancements,
That's right.
and you're weak, and you have no culture. All you know how to do is rape, pillage, and run roughshod of everything holy and sacred to everybody else. And so, Billie Holiday, for me, to your point, she's like, okay, you can consume this, but you're gonna consume this too.
Right.
Eat this song.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is why they didn't want her to sing the
That's it.
song.
That's right.
I'm gonna make you look at yourself, America.
That's right.
Right. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Reverend Durr. I know you got something. to put in
Well,
here.
no, just to add, because one of the things that obviously immediately was triggered was the notion of kind of inner visions, and obviously nod to Stevie in that regard. But us always being able to speak from within, based upon the breath of God being in us, and the ways in which we would interpret how the Spirit would move us, and how the Spirit would compel us to celebrate while also resisting. Because I think what was brought up about Billy, it's also this notion of I'm going to resist by singing resist the ways in which you're seeking to erase us, right?
Yeah.
The strange fruit,
Yeah.
but this notion of erasure, right, being significant in being able to arbitrarily decide that you have control over our bodies to this degree, and that it would be showcased, right, for your entertainment, and the ways in which now I'm going to hold a mirror up to you for the ways in which you don't reflect and you don't represent the God that I know, right? You don't reflect the way in which we understand the divine. And I think what we've always brought with us was the ways in which we embodied the voice of God in ways that was powerful enough to challenge not only narratives, but challenge nooses, right, that were perpetually being
Right.
fitted for us, right, in ways to ultimately suggest that we were not worthy of things that everybody else was worthy of. And so I just, to what Saul said and what Dr. Norfleet said as well, it reminded me that God is the first spoken word artist, right? The whole notion of speaking, right, words into worlds,
Right.
the notion of nomo and
Yeah.
the awakening of spirit and the things that would have to respond to what the divine said. And I think that's something that, Black folks, as Saul said, what we carried over, what we always understood about what the Lord would share with us internally, what we would share out, but the ways in which we were doing observation on what was taking place, and then how we could articulate that in ways that would help celebrate while also help emancipate us in multiple ways.
Yes, and so I wanted to start kind of and Saul kicked us off with the antebellum period because I think in that moment, because I want to work our way up to 21st century, but kind of showing to you all what you've been saying, how it has evolved and been transferable. So during the antebellum period, it was used as a form of survival and subversion. So that's why wade in the water, steal away. So it was hidden messages, right? So then when you move to more of, I guess, the abolitionist period, when you have a sojourner truth, ain't I a woman? Because I think that too, that speaking of herself to me is a form of protest and poetry, right? In the way in which she had the rhetorical questions in there. I think that was like brilliant the way she did it. The more we read it. So we look at kind of the early freedom movements where I think we kind of shifted, in my opinion, the adaptation would be now we're trying this. It didn't really work because sometimes white folks, the whiteness is going to always be white. But it shifted to more of a moral suasion. But you start, in my opinion, and I would love to hear Reverend Durr's take on this, you started seeing more public theology. Right, the way you talk about Frederick Sojourner or even Harriet Jacobs. I don't know if you've ever read Instance of a Slave Girl, and just the story of that is wild to me. How you lived in the attic and watched your kids grow up, in the master never knew you was right there the whole time. But she talks about, to your point, they said you didn't give this life to me, and you can't take it away, and that's why James Cone would always say, you can kill the body, but you can't kill my soul. And that's why they would say, everybody talking about heaven ain't going.
Right.
Or in their breeds to say, before I be a slave, I be buried. Because I'm not what you put on me, right?
That's right.
And so I'm just wondering about maybe what does it mean to use interject that public theology? And when we say moral persuasion, or maybe it's how do we provide more clarity and stand on our moral authority to do that, and declare a particular kind of public theology when today we know we have multiple public theologies, and one that's winning right now in the echo chamber is that of white Christian nationalism, right? So just talk to us about historically how that looks, and then what that could shape to mean today of us to get it more out there in an art form that can capture more people's attention.
Well, I'll just add, I think, Reverend Ayers, what you said was thinking about subversion in terms of being able to take a wade in the water and obviously it having an alternative meaning. And I think the ways in which we understood God a particular kind of way and the way in which we were communicating right in the face of, because those songs, what was being thought about in terms of us being happy and us being celebratory while we were conveying meaning, and that meaning being connected to freedom, being connected to believing that God still made us to be free. So the whole notion of up over my head, right? I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere, and being and engaging in theology in that regard, where in which the sacred was still not snuffed out by the dehumanizing treatment, by the evil that was present. So seeing, I think those earlier songs, I think, represent our resilience, our response, and our resistance in the face of evil. And it was dropping breadcrumbs, because I see that as the ways in which kind of moving into hip hop in a sense, right? The subversive ways in which it's being interpreted by people from the outside one way, but it's being transported, as Dr. Norfleet said, it's being transferable and transported through the airways completely different by us who are present, right? And what we understood about our belief in God, because we live in a society now where, if somebody prays for something and if it doesn't happen in 2 weeks, someone will say, well, God must, God maybe doesn't care, maybe God doesn't love me. So just thinking about, I think they were doing the kind of practical theology and public theology by continuing to make that public profession, because the music becomes, right, I think, a public profession of belief and a confession about a belief in a God in spite of my circumstances not changing quickly. But what does that mean for how it sustains my spirit, how it sustains my imagination, and how it sustains my holy belief that this will not be always? And I think that's the soul and the gift of Black folk. And that's always been, I think, the depth of our theology.
Yeah. That's how, gosh, there's so much unpacked in all of that. So I'm thinking about, we were talking about the spirituals, and just the fact that this is 2025 and we are still talking about spiritual.
Yeah.
I think about when we made it to this land, we all came with different languages, different tongues. And so the spiritual is a learned song.
Yeah.
So they sat in the churches and the English hymns that they were hearing. But we took that and we adapted it because, again, we say, you know, you can change the location, but you can't kill what's inside.
That's
so,
right.
you know, just think about it. You had people here, you know, from different areas, different tongues, different tribes, but we all learned the same song. And so I think if we bring it to present day, public theology, everybody's got this, everybody got that, we have got to get back to the point where common everyday people, and this I will always stand on this, common everyday people listening to their voices and making sure that they connect with their history, making sure they connect with who they are. And I think sometimes we shun artists. Artists get the shine. They get the spotlight, right? They get the mic. And so typically if you have the mic, you got the power.
Right.
Right.
But it's those everyday people where it's passed down. It's the everyday people that keeps the connection going. And so, you know, the public theology, what are we saying? What are we saying collectively in community? And are we listening to that? And then are we connecting that to the children? Are we letting them kind of just, because I think it's very important. If we are to continue, and we have it in us, because again, when we came here, we spoke different languages, different tongues, but we all are still talking about spirituals now today. So that means there's something inside of us. Connectivity is inside of us. But it's how are we connected to the main core and the main goal of what we're trying to get to. So I don't know. It's just a lot of stuff going on in my head right now. It's just a lot of rich conversation.
Yeah, 'cause I think, so for me, if I were to say, what is our North Star, it would be liberation. Just full stop. The ability to take down all barriers that preclude us from living an abundant life. Because you can have free, so during enslavement, they wanted to be free. Freedom was the goal. But the problem with that was you didn't get liberated.
Yeah.
So you were free from the physical chains, free to move about and make your way, but we know you didn't get the barriers, those things that created the enslavement were not torn down. That's why you had black codes. You had lynching, Jim Crow segregation, because that we weren't liberated from the systems that created our condition. And so I think it's always liberation as the North Star. Now that may take different directions to get there, freeways to get there. Might be like the intersection, you know, the high five or something. You know, I got to go down 30. You may need to go 35. We're going to loop back around and catch up on 67, you know.
Right.
But we all going in that direction. So I think that is the goal even now, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's how do we, and I wanted to start kind of move from enslavement to more of the abolitionist period to the Harlem Renaissance, where I think that's where you started seeing this rise in the art, not just music, but written. Right, forms of art where we're talking about like racial pride, political consciousness, right, in the writing, Baldwin, et.cetera. And I think it was more that cultural self-determination that you started to see, like we black and we proud before you really get to the 70s, right? It started there. And then I think obviously the civil rights movement was more of this mobilization, music and art being used to mobilize people, to organize people for action and for change. So I wanted to start and kind of historically walk through that, because I think as we talk about now, as you all have said, there's a through line. We're not doing something new and different. It just looks new and different. And I think it's important to follow that through line, just as important for us to look at the, what I would say would be the oppressive systems, how they, so we talk about first you were in the fields, okay, now you in prison industrial complex. First they starved you, now they cutting off snapping wick. I'm saying we have to be able to see the different manifestations so we know what we're dealing with. And I think the same with the way that arts have been used over centuries, but how do we kind of lean into like, oh, okay, let's remix that. What does it mean, to your point, what does that mean now? Because clearly it's surviving. And so now I want to kind of shift into present day, but I think it's important to have that background to know, because I think our ancestors were clear about the moment they were in and what they were going after. Whether it was fully, whether they saw the long road or not, I don't know, because I never had to be in a field working sun up to sundown. Giving birth in the field and making it go out the next day. So I don't know. So maybe all I could think of, I want to get out of here. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I'm trying to get. Like, I feel like each era they were clear. To your point, what are we going after? I think they understood, and it was obviously much more harsh. We were much more, densely populated. We wouldn't all over the place. We couldn't live in this gated community as the only one. I wasn't the only one on the board. I ain't the only one on my job, and I'm happy about that. So things are different now, but I think that's what has not changed.
Yeah.
They were clear on what we need to be freed up from and liberated from, and how we're going to use what we have to get that message out to the masses and to those who seek to oppress. So let's talk about knowing that kind of trajectory, where we are now. And, now, of course, this is how I sometimes think about it, because we intentionally put a Paul Robeson, Billie Holiday, and Kendrick Lamar on the graphic, right? And so I'm wondering if we could just now shift to the various forms of art. Actually, it's so many forms of art that's available to us. But also, what's the role of artists? Do they see their role? And understanding justice movements, and not to say you have to be tethered to one or the other, but how do you use your giftedness to really be a form of social consciousness that we need? And because I think it's so important to have that in these various movements that we do. I don't think you can make without it, because I think all kind of arts have a way of pulling people into space, to call people into space. It's in our DNA. Something's gonna, if I start, I don't know how to do it, but if I started beating a rhyme on this table that y'all be like, we're gonna just jump right on in. Because it has a way of pulling us in. And once I can kind of get you in to see, but I need the message to translate. Right. And I also know, well, now I think social media, et cetera, has a way of, now we can hear more independent artists, more conscious artists, but it's still seemingly the majority, the mass music that's out there is doing the opposite. It's telling us that we are bitches and whores, that we young niggas, right? It's doing everything. I think it was Freshest Quest, a rail scene, that said you can't keep calling yourself all that all day long and expect to be productive. And so let's just kind of talk about what we need in this, or maybe what you all, particularly Dr. Norfleet and Mrs. Saul, what you're seeing in this art form, not just in gospel, just in music, because you got Bob Marley on your shirt. So I have Billie Holiday. It's also about Christian folk understanding
that there is no line.
That there's no line.
That is a great point. That I think that's what helped to kind of power the movement in years past, was the understanding that there's no separation between you as a secular artist, me as a Christian artist, you as a preacher, me as a street corner activist. It takes all of us to move together, because we are one. And when we come together in those times, and even now in the present day, you start to realize that there is something just innate about art. And it doesn't matter what, I was trying to rationalize my thoughts behind this morning. And the most that I could come up with is that every person in the world has the natural ability to do most things that we consider art. I'm not a great drawer or painter, but I can paint. I'm not the greatest dancer, but I can dance. I'm a good singer. I'm not the greatest one in the world. But when I see somebody take those skills and convey something that provokes emotion in me, it says to me, what must this person have felt in order for them to pull this out of themselves in such a way that it brings the same emotion out of me? And so when you start to realize that art has this way of, without word, and sometimes with the spoken word, because that is an art form for the person who is, and I'm not even talking about poetry, I'm talking about standing flat foot and speaking a speech that was written out. To me, that is just as musical as a song, because there is beat, there is emoting through the voice, and it should take you to a place where you cannot do anything else but pay attention to what's being said and understand the message that it's trying to convey, even if you don't necessarily agree with every point. And so for me, understanding that role that art can play, and again, something that you brought up earlier about Billie Holiday in those settings, to me, it wasn't just all resistance. It was revelatory. I have you here. So you have to hear what I'm saying. Now I want you to take the blinders off and see what life looks like for me. And I feel like also that's what Kendrick did
Yeah.
at the Super Bowl. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
He took our Uncle Sam and dressed him up as their Uncle Sam and allowed them to see this is what your system looks like to me. If I'm your favorite artist and I've got millions of dollars. And I still have to worry about what might happen if I'm subject to the power and authority of a police officer, or when I'm subject to the power and authority of those who have more money than me, who can control the trajectory of my career. If that happens to me and I'm this big superstar, what do you think is going on to the least of these, as the Bible would call it, you know, the average everyday American. You know, so art has this way of leveling the playing field. We all can do some form of it. But when it's done right, it pulls your emotions so forward in your existence in that moment that it causes you to take stock of what it took to get to this place.
Because you said something powerful here. Because this is what I mean by connecting those dots. So the Super Bowl, how you're just the artistry of that and the messaging, and then we talking about it could be considered subversive, but some of us know it could be layered, right? When he said turn the TV off, right? So it's also him telling us, I'm saying black folk and those I would say around the world,
right?
Who, because most people around the world don't live under democracy, they live under dictatorships, and so what does that mean to turn that TV off? And I've got millions of people watching this, so I'm gonna get this message out there. And did we take heed to that message, or did we see it all as entertainment?
I don't think that we've paid enough attention to the fact that majority of the media is controlled by, I don't even want to say two. It feels like one corporation. At this point.
Right.
Both sides, the liberal media, and conservative media that we see in America. The big ownership is up under one umbrella. Such drastic, differing opinions.
Right.
What we look at them as, but when you look at what's actually going on, they're not really that different in the messaging at times and the way that they put the messaging out. This is what I'm saying when I say that. A lot of it is kind of fear-based. And we use fear as a motivation to bring our message out. When at the fact of the matter, at the center of the matter, there are actual issues that we need to take care of, but normally we can't get to the real issues from all the entertainment that's going on.
Correct.
You know, and so like you said, when he said, that's why I kind of turned when he said, turn the TV off. It's hard to turn off the entertainment at times. You know, but seriously, we need to, because there is so much distraction and deflection that's going on, and we're not seeing. If you are a consumer of mass media, sometimes you're not really seeing what's going on. You're just following along on your channel, on your station, and ingesting what they're giving you.
Right.
When the fact of the matter is, there's a real issue that we need to take care of. There are people who are about to go without food in a couple of days. There are, you know what I'm saying? There is monuments being built to a man that ain't done nothing in our nation's capital. And I ain't even talking about the ballroom that he's building. You know what I'm saying? But there is messaging that he's putting into this, into our nation, into our eyes. There was even a young lady the other day, a post came across Facebook, and she was saying, y'all, if you turn the SNAP benefits on the next day, don't use them. And she was saying, because what I'm starting to realize is we drive to the point where we are frantic, nervous, and afraid, and all of a sudden the Savior comes in, and he changes the dial. I'm about to turn off TikTok. I'm going to change the dial. I'm the Savior. I step in. And so it's perpetuating this image to us repeatedly. Turn the TV off. Turn it off. If you remove yourself from being able to see this disinformation being perpetuated repeatedly, we can still kind of gain some more control over our thoughts in the way that we choose to show up in this world. But that's just, it's something that is hard for, I believe, a lot of people to do because it's so ingrained in us. This is the way that you say involved and current and a part of the
Correct.
conversation.
Right. Yeah, because I think it's layers to it. I definitely think it was called a social consciousness when he says turn the TV off, because it's like, don't let, to your point, global, I'm going to say global mass media control your thought process and put so much in your mind.
Yeah.
It's almost like Black folks who have consumed oppression so long they're anti-Black, right? That's all you allowed to get in your spirit. And I also think it was a call not only to social conscience, but it's like, pay attention to what's going on in your own neighborhood, in your own communities, and in your own spirit. Yeah. And I think he's probably, pulling on maybe the tradition of Gil Scott-Heron when he says the revolution is not going to be televised. What you're looking for ain't going to be here in this entertainment I'm giving you in the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah. Right.
Right. You might look, or Public Enemy.
Right.
Whether it's Fight the Power, 911 is a joke.
Yep.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Like a real life-saving thing in my neighborhood don't save us.
Right.
Even though Black folks invented paramedics.
Amen.
But anyway, Dr. Norfleet, Reverend Durr, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah.
Doc, go ahead, and then I'll say
I was
something.
just gonna say, what Saul said summed it up really well. Artists have to be discerners of the time. Those who take on the true responsibility. Because again, I do believe that everybody's a creative. Everybody can create in some form or another. The reason why the arts are so seductive, if you will, it's because you unite your senses, sight, smell, touch, and you unite that with something that's going on the inside, your life experiences, and then you make that evident to other people. How did you connect what's inside of you and use all of, you heard of creative sensibilities. How did you bring all that together to create this, right? And what you created, and I consider to be good, is because you were able to tap into something that resonated with me. So how did you do that? How did you know I was feeling that? How did you know I was thinking that? And so now you got them open. They're open now. Once they're open, what do you do with that access?
Yeah.
That's what the artist has to take on responsibility.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what Kendrick does, what Billy did, obviously what Bob does,
Right.
my favorite artist of all time, hands down.
Yeah,
when I was younger, I had like a room and it was nothing but Bob's, just how you were able to connect that for people. Very simple in the way they did it, but they discerned the time.
That's right.
Every song, I'll just go to Bob. Every song that Bob created, it wasn't a protest song. A lot of it was. But every song wasn't a protest song because he understood that the revolution couldn't be sustained with just anger, couldn't be sustained with just rage. So you had to throw in, turn your lights down low. You had to have a moment where people could feel a release and remember that love is still accessible, right? Because that's what artists do. Artists don't just expose what's going on, but they also cast a light on a future, on a hope.
That's right.
Help us. What today is trying to do is suffocate our imagination. It's trying to suffocate our ability to imagine what could be.
Yes.
You can't do that. Oh, yeah, we had a Black president, but it won't happen again.
Yeah.
Kamala tried it. Won't happen again. So suffocate our imagination. But what the arts can do is get that door open. Once you got that door open, what are you then leading people to? And that's the responsibility and the challenge of those who've been gifted with this, with the mic.
Yeah.
Because you got everybody on YouTube. Everybody's a celebrity.
Yes.
But again, you got those who've reached the MAGA status,
those
who got that mass appeal.
And
but
they
now
not
that you
doing,
have
yes.
that.
So can I just say a little something? When you said every song wasn't a protest song, I'm going to argue and say it was.
Okay, come on.
Because for me, when we think protest, justice, we typically think, rah, 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 we hit the streets, we angry. But see, justice, protest is also hope and healing. So turn the lights down low to me, because you are saying, hey, wait, love is still real. So you're pushing back against that it's not real and it's not available to Black people. But that's really what they try to make it seem like. We don't deserve to be loved, to be happy, to be in love. Right? But historically, we have pushed back against that by, still getting married, having children, creating communities, doing all kinds of things. So just think about when we see protesters, because I'm saying that because a pastor told me one time, he's like, I want you to come to my church so you can talk about justice ministry. But one thing, I don't really preach justice all the time because I don't want to sound mad all the time. Who said you gotta be mad? Preach about hope and healing, about love and liberation. That's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But I think again, that's part of what's pushed out there by mass media of what protest and justice looks like.
Right.
It's always showing you in the street, some being set ablaze.
Right.
Always showing somebody who seems to be doing this. So I think it's that part of we're gonna also resist the fact that we can't love in this moment.
Right.
You're not gonna have us so tangled up in your stuff
Right.
that we're not gonna lose our humanity in that, because that's what they want you to do, is to become so consumed with anger.
That's right.
With
Right.
That's
with
right.
all the things. So you just say, well, just forget. I'm gonna throw up both my hands. Right, that
Right.
whole Marvin Gaye. Right, I'm gonna throw up
Right.
both my hands. It make you want to
Make you
holler.
wanna holler.
Yeah, and do that because of what you see. And I think to then say, no, we still loving.
Yeah,
We're gonna
yeah.
turn these lights down
Yeah.
low and be with my
Yeah.
boo, because I deserve that, because I'm
Right.
fully human.
Right. But then the message becomes too, and I think that's another thing that Black artists, we know how to do this so cleverly, so coded, right? Everything we do is coded. It's always a double entendre. It's never just exactly what it is. So when I was saying about Bob, I'm just thinking of these mega artists, Gordon Parks, just to get outside of the music
Music.
lane.
Yeah.
They knew who they were talking to.
Right.
Some stuff wasn't for Empire, wasn't
Right.
for the system. Some stuff, come on in this room. Come on, brother. Come on, sister. It was for us.
yeah.
And we needed to listen. So, when I talk about Bob, turn your lights down low. Is this love? Yeah, one message was for Empire. One message was for when you're out in Empire. But another thing, we got to be, sometimes when you bring people in the house, let me tell you something. You're not going to hear this out of the street, but let me tell you something for us, something that will only resonate with our people, something you will only connect with. I need you to remember that. Don't let what's out there in the street suffocate
Yeah,
you.
correct.
Keep that love, keep that connection,
Yeah.
keep that. So you do get married. You do still have a chance to,
Right.
get along with your brothers and sisters, So that's kind of what I was saying, about
Yeah.
the protest music as opposed to,
Yeah. And probably just how our angle on lens.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for sure. Because I think we have to have that part too.
yeah.
That's why we love Luther so much.
That's right.
That's
right.
That's
you
right.
know, we got, you got to have that. Because we're
Yeah.
people, we're human. We have all the range of human emotions as other people do, even though they try to make it seem like we don't. And I think that's why, I ain't gonna lie, I do like some ratchet music.
Okay.
But
I agree.
but I think
We all guilty.
it's the balance I think we're lacking.
Right.
And so the ratchetness rules out over that conscious that
Right.
makes us stop and think. And I know it's intentional, because you have white kids who will tell you, they love all the rap songs, but they know when I get out of high school, I got to go to college.
That's right.
Yep.
Or when I get out of school, I got to go work over here. But we tend to think this is how we're supposed to live our
This
life,
is the
Yeah.
life.
That's right.
as opposed to this is something I'm just doing. Reverend Durr, I've been talking. Go ahead. I know you got plenty to say. Jump in
Well,
here.
I'll just say just a few things. Obviously, so much has been said, which is so great. But the point that was made about artists and their response, because I think talking about Bob, talking about Billy, talking about Paul Robeson, and talking about Kendrick, what they understand as their responsibility over and against just your responsibility. And I think you now have artists, right? Some folks who make art, they just say, I like Saul, to what you said in terms of folks being an artist. Some people just say, well, I can respond and I have the ability to respond.
Right.
I don't necessarily maybe think of it as a responsibility to tell a particular story, to represent a particular demographic, to offer a counter narrative, because I think that one of the through lines, if we say hush harbors and brush harbors, was a public theology statement. We have a different way in which we gonna worship and understand the divine. And then we think about the artists that we've mentioned, how they understood God, how they understood community, how they understood their agency, and how they understood the need, right, to challenge those things that empire promoted, but also those things that possibly had been internalized by us to the degree where we didn't see ourselves as worthy of, and didn't see ourselves as valuable, and didn't see ourselves as God's divine children. And so what happened in February, and really what happened in the first 6 months of 2025 between Sinners and between the Super Bowl performance, in my estimation, right, was the power of Black artists, Black storytelling, because you got Ryan Coogler, right, taking us, right, to a different space and time with what we saw in Sinners, with what may have been one of the greatest scenes ever in cinema, where he gave us in that one scene, right, he took us all all the way, right, from Africa to all the way to hip hop to twerking, right? I mean, he just had brilliance,
all
right?
the range.
Yes.
Right, to take us through that. And then he's coming off what Kendrick did.
Yeah.
But what sometimes doesn't get mentioned about Kendrick is who is Kendrick's North Star? Tupac.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
True.
Kendrick's love of Tupac, who we know, right, was an artist who did understand his responsibility in light of, again, doing
Right.
stuff that was, making music that was ratchet. But we also know when we heard Brenda's Got a Baby, when we heard Keep Your Head Up. And so Kendrick being influenced by that, using that moment, right, to offer to America in the face of MAGA, right? Because who was
Right.
at the Super Bowl,
Right.
In terms of his presence at the Super Bowl, and Kendrick being able to artistically and creatively and rhetorically and linguistically and then collaboratively, right? Because you had dancing,
Yep.
you had dancing that's germane to
Visual, yeah.
Yes.
LA, which is really a reflection of what took place on the African soil.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you had him intentionally getting a Serena Williams, getting
Right.
a Samuel L. Jackson, right? Just all of what went into
Yes.
that performance. And now it being what the most consumed Super Bowl show in history. But again, just speaking to your point quickly, Reverend Norfleet, I mean Dr. Norfleet,
You was right.
Go,
was the
Ray,
ways
go.
You was right.
are the ways in which how can we do all of what's even taking place now? How do we co-opt the imagination, right?
Yeah.
That's Walter Brueggemann's The Prophetic
That's right.
Imagination when he talks about the role of the prophet is to continue to offer futures alternative
Yes.
over and against the one that the empire wants to make you believe is the only one. And I think what artists do, right, is offer us a different future, whether that's George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, when we think about what that represented, or whether that's Queen Latifah saying ladies first, ladies first. When that video came out, when we talk about the Queen and we talk
That's
about
right.
Loni Love and we talk about Miss Melody,
Come on
and we
now.
talk about what that collaboration looked like and what it was representing, with her showing sisters, right, playing on the chessboard saying we taking over, right, and bringing things back to Africa. So what we've always been able to do, I think, is just offer something that fed the mind, the body, the spirit, and the imagination that will continue to allow us to believe that God loves us, but to also believe that we have something that we have to fight for, and that we are being led and being driven by a power that is working in us, but a power that's also working through us.
So since you said that, I'm going to shift to, because this is where I want to go to next, since you kind of brought it up. Let's talk about the role of because at least three of us, well, all of us, but definitely three of us every day work in the black church setting.
I knew it was coming. I knew it.
Because I think we have so much, how can I say this nicely? We just have a lot of deep programming we have to do, right? Because to your point, Reverend Durr, we can't have a prophetic imagination because many of us in Christian churches in the black church have a borrowed imagination. So it's so hard to have a prophetic imagination when you're using somebody else's imagination of who you are and what is right, what is wrong, what is sacred, what is secular. And so let's talk about the role of the black church and I'm going back to now to you said, and we go all the way back to the African continent, to Dr. Norfleet's point, when you had when the people came over, they had different languages, tribes, culture, spiritual practices. So what one particular tribe may have done, and another's like, we don't do that.
Right.
But some in there were, and they said, well, we don't know what you did there, but what can we collectively and what we're going to pull together where we forge this new being, which became us as black folks in America. Because I'm thinking about when Sinners came out. Oh, could nobody denounce Sinners like black church folk?
Yes, Lord.
Beyonce could nobody denounce Beyonce like black? They can't never denounce white supremacy, white domination, and everything else, but that's another story.
Right.
But I'm wondering, what is our role in making sure we really begin to teach our own people, not to demonize that which can be useful for our liberation, right? And our ability to understand who God is in our own way, and not having this borrowed imagination about what it means to be Christian. And that to be black and Christian existed long before Europeans knew what it was.
That's right.
And I'm just wondering, because we now here it is, but some of them folks be going out watching these movies, listening to the music anyway.
Right.
But let's just talk about what's our role in being able to counter the way that we demonize everything these artists when they are using their ability, to your point, Dr. Norfleet, to talk about not only what is happening in the world, but what they see as a future. And because I remember people said you watch Sinners, the scene where the sister was using her African tradition and spiritual practices, like, oh, that's the just all the things, right? So let's just talk about that. However you all want to answer that, but what is our role and what do we need to do to stop people from demonizing our artists who do make the attempt and use in their responsibility? And their responsibility is saying, no, I got to not only tell what's happening, but also going to show you what's possible. They was mad at Wakanda. I mean, we didn't call Black Panther, we keep calling it Wakanda. But because of what it represented in terms of Black people, like, it may have been fiction, but we know that's real.
Right.
Because we have Black Wall Street. We have Rosewood. Like, we have where we had everything we needed, and it was destroyed. But so let me stop there. Let's just talk about that. What we need to be doing as the Black church.
Well,
come on, Minister Music, and I'll come after you.
There are so many ways that we can approach this. But for me personally, I think I first came into the understanding that there was kind of a separation as to what is acceptable in the Black church. When one Sunday, I will never forget this for the rest of my life. It was the Sunday after I believe John Lewis had passed away. And the programming, for whatever reason, God had placed in my heart and soul. We sang, I think we did, I Believe by Sounds of Blackness. We did We Need You Right Now by Layla Hathaway. Yes, Donny Hathaway. My mother called me and she said, now, we would have never been able to sing any of that at Mount Pilgrim. And it's my home church. And I was like, I never considered that or thought of. She was like, it's such a blessing for you to be in a space where you're free to explore what the message of the gospel is.
Yeah.
She said that music, because it made an appearance on the R&B station, meant that we couldn't sing it at our church. And so I think that being here, in a sense, I have been ingrained in just learning the totality of what the message of Jesus Christ is. And I think that that's one thing that we have to get and understand, that the message of liberation is not separate from our identity as Christians, as believers in Christ. The totality of what it means for me to be a person who wants to see justice for all leans very deeply into who Christ was. And because I understand the real story of who Jesus Christ was, where he was actually walking, as far as the geographical location of where he was, and where spiritually he was walking amongst the people who needed him the most, who needed help the most, who were excluded by the empire the most. That speaks to me in a way that it didn't before I got here. So I think, to your point, we have to begin to understand the way ourselves, the way that Christ and God intended for us to know who we are in the beginning, and walk away from that whitewashing of who Christ is and who we are as a people. And once we are able to kind of get away from those two things and study and learn, we'll begin to see that me raising my hand and shouting hallelujah is wonderful.
Right.
But if I'm not doing the work of helping my brother and my sister, if I'm not doing the work of defending the orphan, if I'm not doing the work of taking care of the widow, then am I really doing what Christ initially set out for me to do? And so I think that another thing that you pointed out is something that we don't pay attention to a lot of times. When you said that the woman, when she brought forth the root work that she was doing in Sinners, a lot of times we demonize those practices because we don't understand what they were. that was for some people their understanding of the way that God, the supreme being, worked in the world. He gave me this herb to be a healing source for me. He provided this water. And so I danced to celebrate the movement of the water. That's the way that I connect with him. It wasn't that I'm doing this to evoke an evil spirit, but I'm doing it in the way that I understand him. And that's the way that I convey my connection and relationship to him. We have a misunderstanding. And we allow that misunderstanding to inform us,
Right.
and now demonize what we don't understand. And so I believe that it's definitely important for anybody who wants to be awakened and to be awakened and to be fully aware of what's going on in this world. So number one, as the word says, study to show yourself approved. Get your understanding and understand that the portrait that's been painted ain't really our true story.
Right.
Allow the Lord to reveal that to you. And then you'll be opened up to a lot of possibilities and ways that we can express through art, through the word, our relationship with God, and the work that we do.
Yeah.
I want to hear Dr. Norfleet, your response, and Reverend Durr, I want to hear your response to this as well.
Yeah, Saul, you took me down. So I had a
I'm
thought,
sorry,
but then
yeah.
you took. I said, "Oh Lord, oh yeah, that's good." So just jumping on a few of your points that you made, just knowing who God is first of all. That's the core, right? And of course, that's a loaded question. It's a huge question when you talk about the Black church and what's the Black church's stance. What's the responsibility? I'm gonna go back to Bob. Bob says, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind." Of course, he borrowed that from Marcus Garvey. But I know that the tools that we need are already in the house. I still say that our strongest weapons are our children. I still say it. The way we teach our children, especially today, and I can say that because I got a 5-year-old daughter, right? And there's so many things that are coming at her. But the Black church, if the original intent of the Black church was not just for you to come and have a spiritual release, it's where you came for learn how to read.
Right.
It's where you came to learn economics.
Right.
It's where you came, again, to socialize with people that are going through the same things that you're going through. So the Black church, and I just say that in general, if we would get back to the core of what the intent of the original, of what the Black church was there for, I think that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing, for those of us who are unapologetic about understanding the role of the Black church, just keep doing it. And I say Friendship West. It's always funny to me sometimes when they invite the choir to different churches. And, of course, we'll put on our African garb, right? I remember we were at some church in maybe last year, and we were walking into the sanctuary, and a lady said to me, "Oh, I knew that was Friendship West because y'all had that African on." I said, "Oh, yes, ma'am. Exactly. We are here. We're in the house." And it's a Black lady, obviously,
Yeah.
But it's just like, we're not going to cower and apologize for who we are. And so the Black church, particularly those who stand on that elevated platform on Sunday mornings, again, has the responsibility to make sure you just keep telling the truth. Keep telling folk who Christ is. Keep telling Black people that you still have a place in this whole thing in God's kingdom, right? Liberation theology. You say that around some Black people, and they like, "Oh my God, that ain't godly." People gonna have, they're gonna say, you talked about as sinners, the bottle trees. What is that? Congo cosmology, where they felt like the spirits, the evil spirits, were in the bottles. And so, but you say that around certain Black people, and they're, "Oh my God, you satanic, voodoo." You said, And so I just think having those conversations, I do see hope. I do see hope, and I'm gonna tell you why. Anytime they start to tell us that we can't do something, anytime they start to take things away from us, it almost get that spirit in us that says, "Oh, okay, all right.
It must be something."
Right. And so you do see a lot of people rising up and becoming a bit more conscious, reading more, not so much pulling from social media, not so much pulling from, again, TV, mass media. You do see a lot of that, because if you banning the books, well, why they banning it? Let me see what's in
That's
here.
right. What's in it? Right.
And so I do see hope in that regard, but I do think it just takes a lot more of these conversations, a lot more courage, and then I still say we have got to get our babies, because that's
Yes.
what's coming next.
Definitely.
That's what's coming next. And they're coming up in an age where technology will either empower or it will wipe you out, right? And we want to make sure that with that tool in their hands, that they are connecting. They're keeping this going. They're keeping the fight going. They're keeping, your history going. What the ancestors died for. We want to make sure you understand that,
Correct.
and not throw it away because somebody says it ain't right.
Right.
So that's my piece.
Yeah, no, that's as you said, it's so much. I know that's a whole nother
That
episode.
sure is. That's a show.
But
That's its own
own
podcast,
show,
right.
probably 4 parts.
Yeah, right.
Because you do
Right.
have to really break down, because we're not a monolith.
Right.
But the reality is we all experience the same oppression in different ways.
Yeah.
Right. Reverend, I'd love to hear your take on this, and then we'll begin to wrap it.
Okay, so I'll just say quickly, because then to your point, once you open that door, that lends itself to obviously some more dialogue. But it's one thing about Raphael Warnock's book, right? The Divided Mind of the Black Church, Theology, Piety, and Public Witness, and the ways in which, to your point, we are not a monolith, but the ways in which, too, as Dr. Norfleet said, the Free African Society, right? We don't, when we talk about where the origin that obviously later turned into the AME Church, but but what they were clear about terms of understanding that just like those who were enslaved, the God on the top, who y'all talking to, is definitely not the God that we understand in the belly of the slave ship. And so it's also challenging the ways in which we have been indoctrinated with a theology and a theopraxis that's antithetical to what that history is about the Black church. And then even challenging sometimes how we say we don't believe in stuff, or how we demonize stuff. So we'll say, I don't believe in reincarnation, but then we'll say that baby been here before because she's saying something that your grandmother said and she never met your grandmother. Right. So the whole notion of, so we don't necessarily see how we can be hypocritical sometimes in our demonization, while yet still making proclamations about particular things that continue to reflect the fact, oh, you do believe in the transferability of spirit from generation to generation, that also kind of reflects what God's hand upon us and the intentionality of how God operates in and through us. But then it's also too just biblical illiteracy and or those who are in pulpits who have gone to predominantly conservative and or Southern Baptist and or have been indoctrinated in a particular way, that their theology, because when we talk about churches, you're talking about the theology of the leader. So if the theology of the leader, is grounded in maintaining whiteness in black face at a particular level, the ministry initiatives, who's in leadership, the songs that are sung, they're going to continue to reflect the theology oftentimes of the leader. So if leaders are going to continue to allow themselves to believe in and preach and deny, right? Because when we talk about the Proctor Conference, the Proctor Conference has been very intentional about foregrounding a Pan-Africanist understanding and the origin of Christianity being in Africa, the world religions. If we talking about Judaism, if we talking about Islam, and if we talking about Christianity, they don't come from Europe, they don't come from Australia, they don't come from Asia. They're grounded in the continent, right? So for me, I think it's just always reminding folks, and just like that point we made a few weeks ago, quickly, when Dr. Jeremiah Wright said what he said years ago, when he just simply said, lions ain't in Europe. That's a small but a very specific and significant point about geography, as Saul mentioned before, in terms of where did this narrative take place? How was Jesus, how did Jesus understood himself, and understanding that Jesus didn't spend no time in the church, The reality of who Christ is one who chose people who were uneducated, who some would say were unqualified, some would say did not have a relationship with the Lord, but yet he chose them to ultimately be those who would be the liberators and transformers of community and society. So I think, as was already said, the reading, what's read, the theology in terms of where we go to school, and our openness to also accept the church don't have a monopoly on God.
That's right.
Because part of the challenge is
That's
that
it.
folks can believe, right, that the church has a monopoly on spirit. Well,
That's
I don't
right.
think that's true, because if I'm dealing with your omnis, which are Greek prefixes, if we talking omnipresent
Yeah.
and
Oh
omniscient,
my.
Come on now.
right,
Yes.
we,
Gotta
we
go
are
part two of
talking,
this.
right, beyond just how we've come to maybe
Yeah.
understand or believe that we are right and God cannot move in other
Wow.
ways that maybe don't necessarily reflect what I've always understood, but may still be the divine working in the world.
Well, can we just get a big hand? We just need a hand clap behind these three in that response. And I think to your, and I know we gotta move. I didn't mind going over there because this is just too good. And I think it's important because I think it impacts how we are really going to get free in this country. This is very critical for us, particularly as churches that remain to be still, right or wrong, challenges we have, the institutions that we have complete control over. And so we have to use them responsibly, right? And so I would have we started this with Dr. Melvin Sampson on an episode. We have to talk about how a lot of stuff we do is purely African and we don't know it.
That's right.
We do it and don't even know it's African. And
That's right.
Let me stop there. Here's what I want to leave us with. So I had typed this quote up the other night for something else, but I think it's appropriate here as we talk about the role of the church. And this is out of the Souls of Black Folks. So Reverend Durr, you will appreciate this. Another form of art, right? When he says, what manner of men and women were these who under the lash of the driver sung amid the wrongs, not songs of revenge, but songs of patience? What manner of spirit was it that in the darkness of the slave ship kept them from utter despair? That even in the bitterness of slavery taught them to hope and to sing. And I always go back to that, and many a times when I'm thinking about what we need to do, this work, I'm like, what manner of spirit was at the bottom of that boat? Yeah. And that's the spirit we need to be drawn on. Right. That kind of animates through all the various forms of arts. If we kind of lean into that spirit. Yeah. And to your point, Reverend Durr, the spirit is never left on the table. And because somebody didn't do it like we do it or didn't come out of a church, we think they're not moving with spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we have to understand we don't own and control God. I mean, right, but you read your Bible to tell you it's like the wind going, that you can't tell which way it's going. We read the Bible, do you believe it? Because if you read it, you would know you can't control God and confine God to a building. So let me stop there because I was getting ready to go into how the Europeans came around that corner when they learned how to navigate them waters. And how when they started dealing with the Africans, they like, oh, that's what y'all believe. We do too. Like it was an exchange of who God was. It wasn't until they wanted to dominate. Then they started putting it down on paper. Putting it in the book saying, if you do something outside of this, it's evil and demonic. And so it's a lot of unearthing that we have to do, a lot of relearning we have to do. So thank you. Look, Reverend Damien Durr, Dr. Michelle McGee, Norfleet, Minister Saul Gates, thank you for being in the classroom today. We went a little bit over today, but I hope you all see it was such rich, needed conversation. And like always, I didn't get to really any of the questions that were preset, but it was a really good conversation. We just kind of let it be organic. So listen, we want you to make sure you join us on next week in the classroom. We're going to have another powerful episode, but first we want to make sure you support the classroom so we can continue to bring these amazing guests into the space. You can do that by buying a t-shirt, Family Classroom t-shirt, and a bag to match your t-shirt. You can scan the QR code if you're not on your phone. If you're on your phone, you go to friendshipwest.org to the Justice landing page, and there you will see a link to purchase your Family Classroom t-shirt. Next week, we're going to have another good conversation about really means to build power in the state of Texas, as we are going to now be under this new gerrymander map and how they're cracking and packing Black and brown people. So going to have Priscilla Barbarando and Casey Thomas with us on next week as we talk about what we need to look for in 26 as we look to flip the House in Texas to try to get some kind of movement or non-movement. If nothing else, we can stop the harm. We might not get anything passed, but maybe we can stop the harm that can be had if we do not do something to make sure we flip the House. And lastly, you know, you've been very good at giving us donations for our eye care initiative. As you know, it supports students at Haynes Global Preparatory Academy on the campus of Paul Quinn College. We take monetary donations. You can scan the QR code and give to that. And if you're in the house on a Sunday, you can pick up one of our dear scholars and you can support their holiday wishes by buying them a gift or gifts that they have put down that they would like to receive for the holiday. So thank you for being here on this episode of Family's Classroom, and we look forward to seeing you next week right here in the classroom at 12 o'clock noon.
From the church to the